Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Poetry Thursday, where a few people on BookTube read you a poem on Thursday. And I've already read you a poem today. We read a poem from the new issue of The New Yorker that wasn't entirely unsuccessful. But I wanted to do Poetry Thursday properly, and I'm working my way through this book, 20th Century American Poetry. The book goes in chronological order, so today's poet is Paul Laurence Dunbar, who, like a number of figures that we've seen so far, wrote and published a couple of volumes of poetry in the 19th century. And the poem that we're reading today is actually from 1899. So we still haven't crept all the way into the 20th century. We are steadily encroaching on 1956. We are steadily encroaching on mid-century poetry in America, where we're going to have trouble. But we don't have it yet. This is a famous poem by Paul Laurence Dunbar called Sympathy, that I thought I'd read to you. I know what the cage bird feels, alas, when the sun is bright on the upland slopes, when the wind stirs soft through the springing grass, and the river flows like a stream of glass, when the first bird sings and the first bud opes, and the faint perfume from its chalice steals, I know what the cage bird feels. I know why the cage bird beats his wing, till its blood is red on the cruel bars, for he must fly back to his perch and cling, when he fain would be on a bow a swing, and a pain still throbs in the old, old scars, and they pulse again with a keener sting. I know why he beats his wing. I know why the cage bird sings, ah me, when his wing is bruised and his bosom sore, when he beats his bars and he would be free. It is not a carol or joy or glee, but a prayer he sends from his heart's deep core, but a plea that upward to heaven he flings. I know why the cage bird sings. And that is metrically beautiful. It's a beautiful poem, which everyone noticed about Paul Laurence Dunbar's work from his earliest years, from his teenage years. Everyone noticed what a talent he had for verse. And he wasn't much older than that before he was coming to the notice of the literary world, including crusty old poobahs like William Dean Howells at The Atlantic, who saw this poetry and thought, this is brilliant. And so did everyone else. In this... On one level, this poem is about exactly what the title says. It's that you're looking at this wild thing that is thwarted by involuntary domestication and feeling for it. You're feeling sympathy for it. And on that level, I love it. Absolutely love it. There's another level here, a level of self-pity that I find it harder to identify with that other level of self-pity here. I know it's not fashionable to say in the 21st century, but there was no sense in which Paul Laurence Dunbar was a cage bird. He was the president of his literary association, the editor of his literary journal in school. He had 2 poetry collections published when he was still a very young man. In his early 20s, he got his first publication contract when he was in his 20s. Got plaudits and hymns of praise from all kinds of social figures, political activist figures, but also literary figures, from Frederick Douglass to William Dean Howells. He became a literary editor, a literary tastemaker, very early on in his life. He became a clerk at the Library of Congress. The Library of Congress would not take my fawning, pleading application to sweep the floors. There was no sense in which he was a caged bird other than the way he built the bars himself. Almost all the obstacles that he faced in his life, I know it's unfashionable to say in 2023, in our grievance world, but almost all the obstacles that he faced in his life, he put in his own path, especially with alcohol. So on that level, his poem Sympathy kind of bugs me. And on that level, it seems like pandering, which is an accusation that was laid at the feet of this author many, many times in his own life and many, many times since. So I'm not sure that I'm out on a limb to say that, but nevertheless, the poem is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. There's another little poem that they include here. They include a few of his, but they include a little ditty of his, a fling against the critics. Dear critic, who my lightness so deplores, would I might study to be a prince of bores. Right wisely would I rule that dull estate, but, sir, I may not, till you abdicate. Some critics aren't boring. Who do my own faint rejoinder, as some critics aren't boring. But anyway, that's our poem for today. Sympathy by Paul Laurence Dunbar. And we are just moving on. Slowly but surely, we are getting to poets who only published in the 20th century. And sooner or later, we will get to poets who weren't even born until the 20th century. And so on and so forth, right down the line until we get to the bitter end at the end of the 20th century, if we last that long in this anthology. But anyway, that's your Poetry Thursday for today, and I will wrap this up for now, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.